podcast. I am your host, Gabrielle, and I am joined by the wonderful Thomas today. He is the founder of Perseuss. And so we are going to dive into all things AI powered cartonization. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about pigeons, probably. All of the important stuff. So thank you so much for joining us today, David.
Thank you, Gabrielle, for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, so just right off the bat, I'd love to get you to speak to kind of the origin story of Perseus. It's an awesome and powerful name. You guys have great, a super strong brand. And so I'm really excited to hear kind of what inspired you to start Perseus, what inspired you to get into this kind of parcel packaging, shipping industry, and just, yeah, what did the beginning few days look like for you?
Yeah. So before that, we need to rewind what I was doing before Perseus to give you like.
Yeah, yeah, let's talk about the whole thing. Everything from the first thought in your head to, bringing it to market.
So well, first of all, I worked 5 years at Amazon in like technology for supply chain, right? Like how does Amazon move, billions of packages a year, and what kind of software does Amazon use to do that? I worked on bits and pieces of that for 5 years. Uh, a little bit in Europe, mostly in Seattle, and before that, I was a theoretical mathematician. So sort of like all my upbringing and my educational trajectory all kind of converged on applying complicated math in logistics and moving physical stuff around. How do you use math to move stuff around? So at Amazon I worked on really cool stuff, mainly related to their internal like trucking. How do you put stuff on a truck? How do you keep trucks fuller than they were before? How do you optimize the routes of trucks, etc., etc. Super super cool stuff. Super complicated math, and yeah, developed a couple of very impactful projects there. But I had this epiphany where you know Amazon's already really sophisticated technologically, and yet there's so much room for improvement, even at Amazon. Like the stuff that, even Amazon had, a bunch of half empty trucks going back and forth. Even at Amazon today, you had, how many times it happens to you that, you order something on Amazon and you order a shampoo bottle and it comes in like a giant box and it's a little shampoo bottle and it's like 80% empty airspace. Even at Amazon, and this still is a problem, it's still unsolved for various reasons, right? And so, I had this epiphany: if Amazon's so sophisticated and there's so many problems, uh, how does the world look outside of Amazon? What about all the, you know, smaller, like one facility, small company warehouses look like? Right? It has to be even more chaos there. And so I left Amazon with this kind of a vague vision of, okay, I'm going to use my technological skill set to help companies save money and make their supply chains more efficient, right? On some sort of like in consulting basis. And then I did a few smaller projects, and then I bumped into this guy called Andrew from New Jersey. At the time, I was still in Seattle, doing my own thing, consulting and stuff. But I bumped into this guy Andrew, and he was like, "Hey, I have this warehouse, and I have this problem with packing and shipping, and I think I'm overpaying on shipping, and I have some softwares in my warehouse, but none of them know how to solve this. Do you want to have a look at it?" And I took a look at it, and I wrote some sort of a preliminary simulation, and I found, wow, like this guy's leaving a lot of money on the table, right? And so eventually, we kind of went back and forth around like how to structure the engagement, and essentially I realized two things. Number one, okay, this problem is not gonna get solved if like I'm some sort of a remote consultant from Seattle. Like I need to be on the ground in the warehouse, essentially living and breathing and sleeping in the warehouse to make sure this works. And number two, this problem, if this random, distribution company in New Jersey has this problem, there's a high likelihood that a bunch of other companies that move stuff have this packing problem, and and both turned out to be true. Both of these assumptions turned out to be true, which I didn't know at the time. I just sort of like blindly booked a one-way ticket from Seattle to Newark, New Jersey, and yeah, I've been here, yeah, almost 2 years now. The original contract with that company was very successful. They're still with us. We save them mid six figures every year. They're super happy, and ever since then we've onboarded a few couple of clients. We have some big pilots too, and it's just it's less about building. It's still building, a lot of building, but it's also about like how do we sell what we've built and into other warehouses, and this whole like
Mm-hmm.
B2B supply chain. It's a whole new game that a tech geek like me wasn't really um, aware of, but
Mm-hmm.
now we're into that. We got a few full-time employees. We got a bunch of interns now recently. It's very fun. Like now things are starting to really get interesting. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've achieved that critical growth at the beginning, and that's helping you lay the framework, and now you're like the world's our freaking oyster. Now
that's
we
exactly right. It's
yeah.
it's it's like now, because there's so many. I read this quote somewhere, like companies don't really die of lack of ideas, right? There's always like a gazillion ideas, right? And it's the lack of execution. So here now I'm kind of like, all these customers are throwing, existing, paying, and prospective customers, they all have like different variations of this like packing problem,
Mm-hmm.
and like sort of like disseminating what is really the core thing, our core competency, right? Because there's like 50 different angles that I could pursue with this product, but only like one or two are good, so that's kind of where I'm at right now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that just by nature of starting a company based on um, an issue that you've seen in the industry through working at a level in the biggest name in the game,
Right.
you know the problem so intimately. And
Yes.
what's really cool is that like where my brain automatically went is through your discussion of everything that kind of you realized through working through Amazon. And that issue you said with the shampoo bottle and the giant box, like we've all been there,
Yeah.
or the multiple things coming at the same time but in completely different packaging. And you're like, there's got to be a way to do this. The
Absolutely.
implications beyond just folks leaving money on the table, spending too much on shipping costs, all of these inefficiencies. There's also massive, like I see this for small businesses being able to streamline their exports massively, pay reduce their costs for packaging and all that stuff immensely, and like beyond the issue of these huge massive warehouses sending out hundreds of thousands of things a day to a million different places. There's also the startup conversation where if companies can at the onset infuse this into the structure of their business, that's one issue that is just not really ever gonna present itself to them, and that's huge. And
Absolutely.
so, a question too I have, just quick: how old is Perseus? When did you guys? What year did you guys officially start and get off the ground?
2024,
2024. Nice.
early
So
2024.
Nice, nice.
And we currently,
And right now, do you find uh, your customers, are you finding it's more those folks in that startup space, small businesses, or is it the Amazons of the world that that you're kind of going
very good.
after,
That's
or
great.
that are finding you organically?
Oh, so I wish. I wish. We're getting there. We're getting there. But um, no, so Amazon's not gonna pick up my phone yet, right? These
Mm,
bigger guys, they're not gonna pick up my phone yet, and that's fine. You know, the way I see it is, you kind of need to earn the opportunity. You
yeah.
know, and so but bigger companies like to do business with bigger companies, and like there's certain milestones we need to hit before any of these bigger guys are gonna even remotely be interested in this, and that's fine. There's a clear stepping stone trajectory that we're now hitting, but we do have, you know, we're working with multiple F100s, Fortune 100s, that they're interested in like piloting stuff, right? I connected with them on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is by far my best channel. We can talk more about that, but yeah, they've seen the content, they've seen the website, they've spoken to us, they met us in person at trade shows, and they shared data with us. We ran simulations for them, and the ROI is just, it's a no-brainer, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
no-brainer to at least test it, right? And so that's what these companies are doing. Um, so I guess my answer to this is, we have a full spectrum. We have smaller guys. We have sort of like the medium size. My first customer here in New Jersey, they're plus one. It's a single facility, but they do, 9-figure revenue from that one facility, and they're doing very well. And they needed like a very specific custom tailor um, service that we built for them. And so we have a few customers like that, and then we have these enterprise clients, and it's with each of these segments, the game is a little bit different. Um, the smaller guys, they're very price sensitive. Like these 3PLs or smaller brands, they're running on thin margins. Their volume is not really that big. They see us mainly as like a nice to have rather than a critical thing,
Mm-hmm.
because frankly they have bigger fish to fry. They need to like close more business themselves rather than optimize their operations. So these guys, we were able to close and like offer like a very sort of turnkey, easy deployment solution in collaboration with like third-party partnerships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't build custom software for these guys, like at the price point that they're looking at. And then on the other hand, these bigger guys, they have bigger volumes, they have bigger budgets, and they also have more complex operations. But once we run the ROI, on their volumes, like it's a complete no-brainer. Like suddenly, um,
It's almost impossible to say no,
it's
really.
it doesn't really make sense to say no, because like our simulations, we show very detailed breakdowns of where exactly the money is hanging, and how we plan to extract it. That it's very clear, right, from the beginning. And also, these bigger companies, they're used to paying millions for these other supply chain softwares, right? So it's like the price sensitivity there is way less, and like we're able to, they need custom stuff, but like they have budget to like make it worth it for everyone, to
Mm-hmm.
take that sort of generic core and add on these like custom integrations that they need for their specific, maybe they have some homegrown IT system where their inventory data is, we have no problem building those plugins for the big guys. But for the smaller guys, we generally need some sort of a third party partner that's already in there, some sort of like it's called warehouse management system, or it's a like ERP or different. There's other sort of players that sell to these smaller guys.
Mm-hmm.
If we can sort of like piggyback on top of their infrastructure and kind of be almost act as like a white label, right? They're kind of like using our cartonization service without the customer even really knowing that we're
Mm-hmm.
third parties there. That's where
Mm-hmm.
we can serve the small guy. But knocking on doors on the small guys alone hasn't really been a successful sales strategy for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And if you already know that you're going to frequently get that kind of that same issue, then it
Yeah.
makes sense really to pivot your ICP to just a generally bigger size without being that
Cool.
huge, massive, Amazon size enterprise level
Sure.
client until you have the brand awareness, have the authority built, have the case studies in place to be able to go after them. So
Yeah,
definitely.
these big guys like Amazon, it's because their tech teams are so big. I mean, they spend billions on salaries of software engineers. Like when they look at a smaller tech company like me, the question is always going to be, can I rebuild this?
Mm,
And 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 even though the answer is like probably yes, but it'll take you like a long time. They're convincing the person that's the case. Convincing that person that investing in a third party solution is better is just like really hard and very hard for them.
yeah.
But there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of big companies, billion-dollar companies that don't really have like a tech team that's solving niche tech problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they're happy to like at least explore third-party vendors for specific niche problems that they know they're bleeding money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
definitely. And so is there any like consistent industry that you find beyond industries that utilize warehouses and are sending things out at high rates, but have you noticed any pattern with regards to touch points on LinkedIn and stuff like that from certain industries more than others?
yes, we love distributors. We love distributors, or we love working directly with brands, consumable products, or apparel, or distributors of said brands, or distributors of all kinds of things. Um, Auto parts distributors are good. Um, Consumable products. Sort of that's the best niche. That's the niche where we can provide the best ROI.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because a couple of factors. Um, Number one, uh, so first of all, our customer, like the people we serve, those are the people that have a warehouse and they move stuff from their warehouse to other people or other people's warehouses, right? Those are those. If you're our customer if you have a warehouse, right? And you're shipping stuff FedEx, UPS, USPS, or you're putting stuff on pallets, or so we're very versus like the TAM of this is absolutely huge, right? But like we're not conquering the whole TAM immediately, right? We're niching down, and the people where like the ROI is like really really good are distributors or brands that have their own fulfillment, that have multi-channel sort of distribution and own their inventory and own their carrier rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that's important is um, we work with 3PLs too. Are you familiar with the word 3PL?
No.
Okay, so okay, so quick refresher. So 3PL means third party logistics, which is
Oh
means
yeah.
I have a warehouse and other people, brands, like Nike, but let's say, new internet brands, a guy selling, shampoos out of his garage, right? Like at some point, the guy's business explodes on Shopify or Amazon. So now he needs to make a painful decision, right? Either he hires a bunch of people and rents out a warehouse and does fulfillment himself from a dedicated facility, or he outsources that to a different company that already has the warehouse and then pays them per operation, right?
Hmm.
So the second case, that company that does this sort of fulfillment on behalf of other people's brands is called a 3PL, right? And and so our potential customer could be the brand with a warehouse, has its own inventory and has its own operations, or it could be the 3PL, right? That
Hmm.
has a bunch of people's brands in their warehouse, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, generally, what happens is if a brand has its own um, warehouse and its own inventory, it's vertically integrated. It owns its Shopify store, it owns its warehouse, and it owns its fulfillment. Then cool things happen when the cool things happen when I go in, with my software, because I generally save money. My value proposition is my algorithm tells your packers what's the cheapest way to pack it with respect to your carrier rates, right? So every dollar that you save, that's dollar that you don't pay the postal service. It's literally, it goes directly into their EBITDA, right? And you can do whatever you want with it, right? Um, for a 3PL often is not shipping on their own account, but they're shipping on the account of their brand. So like the brand is essentially telling them, okay, I'm gonna ship a pallet worth of shampoos to you once a month, and then use my, here's like my USPS login, and use my USPS, account to like ship these shampoos as orders come on my Shopify, right? And and they might have a bunch of brands like this, and they just do that, right? And then they send that an invoice to the brand. Now the problem is that the brand owns the carrier account, the USPS or UPS. So then I go in and I'm like, I'm gonna save you a lot of money, right? And then once they're like, well, actually, I don't really own, that UPS account is not mine. So you're saving money for my customer, right? And they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't really care about that much.
Like I care a bit, but not as much as I would care if it's me.
So
Yeah.
they're gonna care about it. They're gonna care about it when they're bidding on a brand, right? When
Mm.
they're going through their RFP, that's when these guys generally call us because they want to improve their bid. But that's literally the only time they're gonna care about it. Like once the
Hmm.
brand is in, they're like, whatever, you know.
Hmm.
So so our best customers are like brands that are vertically integrated. They
Hmm.
have their inventory, they own the inventory, and they own the carrier contracts,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
it's distributors. And because again, they own the inventory, they wholesale the inventory, and then then they deliver it. Generally they make money by like these logistical efficiencies, right?
Hmm.
So it's penny crunching business. They look for ways to like
Hmm.
increase the margin. So they're
Yeah.
great
And then you come
customers.
in saying, "What? Look at this."
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. It goes straight into the margin. So
Yeah.
that's what we
Yeah.
do.
And so I'm curious too with how it seems like you've had a lot of success early on with your ability to speak to you have multiple clients at different sizes, different industries, that kind of thing. And so beyond having I would say a very well tailored offering for the issue that you're solving for these folks, what has been the secret sauce for you for being able to achieve the growth you've had so far in such a short time?
Um, I wouldn't say short time. It's
Sure, yeah, I will say, on the
it's,
grand scheme of being to market for such a short time and being able to have the clients that you have already,
so
obviously the framework was laid many years prior. For context for all of our viewers, uh don't want to lead anyone to think that this is a short and easy type situation, because obviously that's not the case. But since you've been to market, and actually rolling out and operating and onboarding these new clients, finding them, that kind of thing, I'm just curious what's worked well for you from go to market to present to get, the traction that you've had so far.
so it's a really good question. Okay. So I read this book called Traction. Have you heard it? Have you heard about it?
I have actually heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. It's two startup guys who the one is like an internet brand, and the other one is like a tech guy. But um, they talk about how there's a today in this economy, there's a gazillion ways to market your product. And they describe like 16 different channels, right? Knocking on doors, cold calling, um, email marketing, search engine optimization, search engine advertising, um, social media, and they go and they list all of these, right? And then the whole point of the book is for any startup, for any idea, right? There's all these gazillion ways you can market it. Probably one or two are for a lot of ideas, they're dumb ideas, so nothing is gonna work. But if your idea is good, maybe one or two channels are gonna work, and then the other ones are not gonna work, or they're gonna work at a different stage, right? And so, they describe like a framework for testing a lot of how do you test these channels quickly, right? To like get a sense of what channel works for you. And of course, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm a tech bro. All my life I've been sitting in front of a computer and like writing code, right? So this has been very new to me. But what we found, so we tested a bunch of stuff. We found, we tried writing blogs, we tried search engine optimization, we tried going to trade shows, we tried listing on platforms, blah blah blah. Um, in the end, we found LinkedIn is really good. LinkedIn is great, and luckily throughout my sort of tech career too, I've invested time and effort into LinkedIn, so I have decent like following there. I've had for years now, but now it's like really getting interesting. So the people that we sell to, and all the people we sell to, or the people that we could partner with, they generally hang out on LinkedIn. And so having a strong presence on LinkedIn, we found helps a lot. Now, there's a certain art to it. I feel like the last couple of months we've really nailed down kind of the way we talk about our system and the way we position the solution with respect to what's already there, what our competitors do, that like our content and our DMs are like really hitting.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't always the case. But I think there's certain art and science there that we figured out. But yeah, so I think to recap the answer, it's like I read a book. The book said test a bunch of channels. I tested a bunch of channels. Turned out LinkedIn by far was really good. The second one that I think works very well in conjunction with LinkedIn is going in person to trade shows, because in our industry it's kind of like this like old, the old conservative industry. The buyers, they're scared to pull triggers on solutions, because it's like, a lot of the times you'll just see a company's making money. Why, even though it could be making more money, why like, risk it, why
Yes, the
bring in
risk
some,
aversion for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. So supply chain, the buyers are very conservative, and like, so being in person with people, having a booth, where people that you've connected with already on LinkedIn, then people can come and check you out in person and like see, oh, this guy's a real company. Like he has a
Hmm.
team, and wow, they have like a hardware demo. They can do that too. Oh my goodness. Like now I'm like, okay, now let's talk. Okay, now I finally take you seriously. Okay, what is it that you do again?
Yes. Yeah. When you can finally see their eyes and ears open and they
Yeah.
accept you as a real human after that connection's made for sure. Yeah.
A lot of, yeah, and because a lot of it, even like a year ago, my LinkedIn following was pretty decent even a year ago, uh, but a lot of the um, yeah, I just looked like, this guy that has a side project, and bigger guys don't want to work with that,
Hmm.
you know. Now the way we present ourselves, and the way that we've been able to like be in person in some of these industry leading events and like shake people's hands, and
Hmm.
have people like play with our solution like now, and then these people talk, and then we get inbound because people refer people to us, like that has sort of like fueled the recent growth, and
Hmm.
um, inbound's happening more and more, and like there's nothing better than like a good inbound. there's, there's nothing better than a good inbound. So I used to have like this like Calendly link on my website, and like I would never get a call booked. And
Mm.
now it's pretty often there's a call booked, so
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah. I think that you stumbled upon something that is so simple, but a lot of folks um, don't necessarily view this as important, which is that iteration and that testing. So
Yeah.
you start something, you focus on a couple channels, you see what works, you test your scripts, you test your strategy. When you're not seeing the KPIs you want, and then you go back and you implement different things. And I feel like a lot of people are like, this is gonna work, so they do it. Doesn't work, but they're just like, well, it's running, so that's how it's gonna be. And things need to be more malleable these days, especially with just how much outreach is going on, and
Oh my goodness.
in the age of AI, connection based marketing is also like secret sauce, amazing, because lots of people are talking to robots a lot of time, and so
Oh my
that
goodness.
connection based marketing I think is ever more increasingly important, for getting in front of people and getting listened to too. So for sure. And so on the other side of that coin, I'm curious what has been the biggest pain point that you've experienced when trying to scale and trying to grow. And I think that just based on your other answer, I can see it could have come from that iteration and that testing, for channels and campaigns that didn't work until you stumbled upon the ones that did. But I'm curious what has stuck out as a challenge, and kind of what has been your game plan for mitigating those challenges, getting through them, coming out the other side, that kind of thing.
So so a big challenge early on was, I would say, it sounds kind of douchey, but like I hope you'll excuse me. Like I think I was very lucky, very early on with like, I got quite a bit of success very early on with like the original customers, and I just got, especially the first customer, it was like the best customer in the world, and they're still like the best customer in the world, but it's like, so then, and that, so I went from like, um, being like a corporate rat to doing a few projects as like a consultant, to then like having the best ever customer, for this like SaaS offering, and almost like enterprise level customer, it was amazing. And so now I'm like, hmm, I'm pretty smart. I'm doing great. Like, what are people talking about? Like, business is hard. Like, I'm killing it, right?
Like, I'm crushing. I don't know what these people are talking about.
Yeah,
This is
like,
easy.
whoever said progress is a slow process wasn't talking about me, you know?
Whoever
That's
said
kind of
progress is a slow process wasn't running, you know?
right. That's
Yeah,
right. So,
yeah.
so, so I had this amazing contract. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Now I just need to build, now I just need to um, find a few of these more contracts and I'm like set for life, right? Uh, and yeah, but then, I figure out slowly and painfully that like that original contract was very much, um, I was very lucky to get that, right? That I found like a very special customer that was like big and they had leadership that wanted more improvement and the leadership was trusting enough to like let a guy who's just starting out do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, and they're amazing people to work with, right? And so once I sort of graduated from this, I was at a point where I had a functioning software and happy customer as testimonial, but like the branding wasn't really working and I didn't quite fully understand how to talk about it yet. And so then all these conversations that I had, people were kind of like confused. People were like, what is it that you're solving? Are you kind of similar to this guy or that guy? And I'm like, oh my goodness, like no one wants to like, how is it that this thing that I built is so valuable to this one customer and no one else gives a crap about it, like how could
Mm-hmm.
this be? um, and and that's when that was a big challenge for me. And in parallel, I was going through sort of like learning the cycle, the natural cyclicity of the industry,
Yeah.
which is like Q3, Q4, people really don't do stuff in supply chain because like they're getting ready for like, Christmas time where most of these brands and the corresponding logistics providers make most of their money in like November, December. So like it's very important that everything goes well during those 2 months. So no one wants to do an implementation in October or no one cares,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that at the time. Like so I'm booking all these calls and I'm pitching all these people, and people no show me, people ghost me. Everyone's telling me how great this is, but then they never reply to my email, and um, and yeah, and then something magical happens. January comes 2025, and um, I hire a person to help with the marketing. And so suddenly now the website, the company looks like a company. And at the same time, Q4 ended. So now people have budgets and are ready to like start deploy. They have margin after the Q4, right? That they need to deploy, right? And they have lessons learned from the Q4 that they want to like get better at. So now all the people that were ghosting me in 2024, now they were like, hey, they see me at this trade show, they see my new website, and they're like, hey, that's you. Oh, let's talk now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, I think the biggest pain point was just like me kind of being naive and ignorant about how hard selling actually is and how like there's all these little variables that you need to control for that because I was just so lucky in the beginning that I didn't really even care about, that now I pay very close attention to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I think it's nice to see um the fulsome discussion of getting success early on. And then you're like, this is so easy. This was amazing. I got this amazing client. Clearly, the vertical's a good fit. I have the correct solution, all this stuff. But then trying to replicate and duplicate that success with other clients not behaving the same way. You're like, what's going on? Um, and so yeah, it links back to that test and iterate kind of conversation that we had earlier. And so whenabouts did you bring this marketing person on to kind of support in
Jan
those spaces?
2025.
Sorry.
The question was, when did I bring them in?
Hmm.
January 2025.
Nice. And have you seen like has there been tangible improvements in
Oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Growth in LinkedIn. Um, then the whole perception of the company, right? Like we put in we have a color palette now. We have a
Hmm.
pigeon now.
Yeah,
Like
you're like we have all those basic kind of assets
yeah,
that
it's like
companies
I
need.
have a LinkedIn cover that's branded, right? Which before, to my logical tech bro brain, who gives a crap about my LinkedIn banner? Turns out the LinkedIn banner is very important.
Matters a
So,
ton. Yeah. More than you'd ever think. Yeah.
it's the difference between a guy who's just starting out and like it's the difference in the feeling of like, oh, this is a guy who's still confused and doesn't know what he's doing, to like,
Yeah.
oh, these guys have a plan. These
Yeah.
guys these guys can probably help me. And it
Yes.
sounds
They're
silly, but it's so true. So,
yeah.
if you
And
have
there's
them,
so much psychology on that side of things that I think technical folks such as yourself, that's not how your brain works. That's not, you're focused on your offering and building the software and writing the code and all the stuff. And so the human psychology behind marketing and sales and selling your product isn't something that's going to be top of mind.
yeah.
And it's also hard to measure those things that are a little bit
Oh
more
my goodness, yes.
right. So you're like, how was I supposed to know that a LinkedIn banner was going to be the difference between this deal closing and this deal not closing? That's crazy,
Yeah.
because there's a whole like universe behind why those things matter, and it's linked to it's linked to sociology, human psychology, the market, behavioral patterns of people
So
using
many
LinkedIn
things.
personally versus business wise. Like there's so much that goes into it. And once it's one of those things where I feel like once you start pulling the yarn, the whole sweater disappears. You're like, how is this everything that went into this? That's not how I conceptualized it at all. So yeah. So there's ton to learn on that side of things too, as you I'm sure you're aware.
Oh
So
yeah, it's also like, as like a poor bootstrapped founder, right? Like when I was the first time when I was like um, preparing to present at these exhibit at these trade shows. Right?
hmm.
How do these things cost like 20K for like a tiny little spot in the corner, you know? And the market's not stupid, right? Like it cannot be not valuable if people are paying so much money for it, right?
Hmm.
So, and it totally is. Like once you exhibit there and you see those same people who like ghosted you on LinkedIn for months now come up to you and be like, oh, hey, what is it that you're doing? Oh, that's cool. Oh, here's my business card. Like, let's schedule a meeting, right? Then you realize, okay, I get it now. I get
Hmm.
why these things matter. And they matter a lot, just look at the price tags of these booths
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
everything.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, you see it later down the line, it all comes together and you're like, that's why these things matter. The picture's complete. Yeah.
and it's also, these trade shows and how they sort of feed very well into LinkedIn. What I've discovered is because you go there and you schmooze around with all the potential partners and customers and whatever, but then if you have one guy there whose only job is to like make videos, then that's great content for LinkedIn, and it, again, makes you look official, right? You're not posting just like a text or like a picture or something. You're posting a video of you and your team at this very very expensive and official event, right? Like you have to be at least a little important, right? That's sort
Hmm.
of the psychology there.
Hmm.
And people suddenly take you way more seriously. Um, yeah, it's so much learning, so much learning. Another learning that I've sort of learned the hard way was that um, once I sort of really nailed down the contract with the original customer, and then went sort of out in the wild to find more business. uh, I was like, okay, I need to sell, I need to sell, I need to sell, and I, so I buy all these, I do what the typical thing that the tech bros do, which is like go buy all the books, right, and like read the books, and so then like I'm practicing my pitches, and then, you know, I realized something that sounds pretty trivial, which is like you can't sell if there's no one like to sell to, if there's no one listening to your pitch, right? If there's like
The wall is not going to buy anything from you.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, like if the top of funnel is empty, it doesn't matter how good your pitch is, right? And you know, the saying that, it's all a numbers game, like applies so well, right? And I've heard that saying many times, right? But now I truly understand what it means. And what it means is that, um, if your top of funnel is empty, you're definitely not going to sell, right?
Yeah,
If
and the
you're,
top of the funnel is the biggest part of the funnel. So if that's empty, the
then
narrowest part of the funnel,
you're
like,
done, man.
that's
You're done.
so far away. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
done. So yeah, especially like what we do is, a lot of the stuff we do is like B2B big ticket sales, right? Like there needs to be the top of the funnel, there needs to be like people going in, there
Mm-hmm.
needs to be calls, there need to be demos scheduled.
Yeah.
And then and a lot of the time it's, before you even sell, you need to like, how do you qualify those leads? Not every meeting you have is a person who's like excited to hear your pitch, Not at all. Actually, vast majority of people don't care, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so
Yeah. Lots and lots of people don't care. Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
most of the world doesn't care about your thing. Like if you're Amazon, okay, like a lot of people use Amazon, but like if you're a you know startup founder and you're solving like a niche problem for like a niche subset of the world, like most people you're gonna talk to are gonna be like counting time to like get off the phone with you, so like it's
Mm-hmm.
it's also about how do you make those conversations a little bit productive. How do you, because a lot of times I get on a call, and especially early on I was kind of confused. Everyone was like supply chain solutions, la la la, and so then you don't really know, is this a guy with a warehouse or is this a
Mm.
consultant for warehouses? And consultants are always the worst, right? They can't buy anything from you, right? So
Yeah.
you don't really know, and they're also very good at hiding it, right? So like you don't really know that someone's a consultant until you get on a call with them. But then once you identify that they're not your ICP, okay, what are other productive things that you guys can do on that call before you hop
Mm-hmm.
off? Well,
Yeah.
maybe there's some sort of a referral agreement that you guys can have. He wants we're okay. We realize we both sell to the same people. Maybe I can sell to your guys and you can sell to my guys, right? Let's do some like cross introductions, whatever, to just sort of turn, because vast majority of, like I said, vast majority of those meetings are just gonna be not your ICPs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you make productive time of those non-ICP meetings? I found is also helpful, really helpful. But all of this sort of like the compounding, like it just takes time. There's a bunch of conversations that I've had, and just because I was nice to the guy and I maybe introed him to someone, or gave him like a little bit of my brain to help him with something, a few months later he like introed me to an actual ICP, right? And these are all things that, like, when you're a starting entrepreneur, in the moment it's very hard to
Yeah.
like keep top of mind, but it's
Mm-hmm.
good to keep doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Awesome. All right. Well, we are nearing the end of our time here. So I just want to say thank you so much, Thomas, for joining us today. We got some great insights, and it was really awesome to hear your story. I think that the trajectory of your business from go to market to present is definitely a unique one. And there's not a ton of folks in this space, so it's really great to hear from like a young founder about what's gone well and you know what's going to happen moving forward. And I'm excited to see all of the great stuff that Perseus does and all of the big contracts that you land in the future, because you have a super strong business, amazing brand. You guys are solving a huge problem, and so it was such a great opportunity to be able to chat with you today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It was a pleasure.